Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I am Dubin, a third-year student at the Hebrew Union College, and I am honored to serve as Temple Emanu-El's Rabbinical Intern. Rabbi Davidson invited me to share tonight what drew me to the rabbinate. So I'm going to start with the first spiritually transformative moment of my life. I was 7 years old, and I had just received my first pair of glasses. My father was driving me back home from LensCrafters, and I was astonished. I exclaimed, "I can see all the leaves on the trees. Dad, there are little wrinkles around your eyes. I can read the words on the signs." And in the backseat of the car, I was amazed, and then suddenly a little dismayed. I realized I've been missing things. How many horses had we driven by that I had not seen? Horse spotting from the backseat was a big interest of mine at age 7. How many cool flowers, how many laugh lines and freckles on my loved ones' faces had I missed? I realized in that moment that I had not understood how rich the world is. There's so much more depth and beauty than I had known. When I remember that first day with my glasses, I think of the words of our patriarch Jacob when he awoke from his dream at Bethel of the stairway reaching the sky. Jacob opened his eyes and exclaimed, "Achin yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh ve'anochi lo yadati." Surely God is in this place, and I did not know it. God, of course, had been in Bethel all along. God is here with us tonight in Bethel. The leaves on the trees and laugh lines on my dad's face were there before I saw them. Yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh. God is in this place. God is in all places. And if we have the right tools, the right glasses, and if we are attentive, we can witness God's presence. Judaism offers a prism that can magnify and refract the world's wonders. A practice of brachot, blessing even daily routines, trains us to recognize and appreciate the natural wonders of our world. Judaism cultivates gratitude and builds the muscle of hope. Jewish ritual and texts guide us through the world as it is and shape our dreams of the world as it ought to be. Judaism gives us our people, those we see weekly at Shabbat and Torah study and synagogue, but also our people as identity, the ancestors in whom we see ourselves and what we could be. I believe Judaism is joyful. I believe Judaism belongs to us today as much as it belonged to our great-grandparents and as much as it belongs to our more traditionally observant co-religionists. Judaism has never been stagnant. Tradition changes to meet the communal and spiritual needs of Jews across time and place. There is a powerful example of how Jewish law has changed over time in this week's Torah portion, Ki Teitzei, where we find a precept deeply troubling to many modern readers. If a man has a ben sorer umoreh, a rebellious and defiant child who does not heed his father or mother and does not obey them even after they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his town at the public place of his community. They shall say to the elders of his town, "This son of ours is rebellious and defiant. He does not listen to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard." Thereupon his town's council shall stone him to death. Thus you will sweep out evil from your midst. All Israel will hear and be afraid. In short, disobedient children are stoned to death. If you think, yikes, that's pretty harsh, well, the rabbis of the Talmud thought so too. And though they do not explicitly reject the biblical precept, they substantially limit the law's applicability until they effectively annul it. The first thing the Tanaim, whose discussions are codified in the Mishnah around 200 CE, do is narrow the parameters of who can be considered a rebellious and defiant child. While the Hebrew word ben can mean either child or son, the rabbis read it as exclusively son. The Tanaim then turned their focus to the age of the child. Because the age of responsibility is bar mitzvah, the boy must be at least 13. Then the Tanaim take a more unusual step. They establish not just a minimum age, but a maximum age that a boy can be charged, until he has grown a beard. An adult man, the rabbi's figure, would not be subject to his parents' authority. The penalty for the rebellious and defiant child is imposed on a son, but not a man. So the Tanaim have narrowed who's possibly liable as a rebellious and defiant child to a boy between the age of bar mitzvah and a beard, roughly a teenage boy. Next, they define what exactly a boy must do to be considered rebellious and defiant. Naturally, a glutton and drunkard should be stoned, but the rabbis qualify not if he was celebrating a holiday or engaged in another mitzvah. So the person who drinks heavily at Purim, say, or eats too much brisket at a Passover Seder, he's in the clear. What if he breaks other commandments, like kashrut? Nope, not liable, because by eating treif, he's defying God, but not defying his parents. The Tanaim continue with carve-outs in this vein until only a teenage boy who eats kosher meat to excess and drinks wine to excess, not when celebrating a mitzvah, whose mother and father want to see him stoned to death, after having been previously warned to stop his disobedient ways and flogged, is possibly, maybe, perhaps liable for the death penalty. One begins to understand that the Tanaim shared our discomfort with the Torah verse. But let's not stop with the Mishnah. In the Babylonian Talmud, codified around 500 to 600 CE, the rabbis quote Rabbi Yehuda as having said that if the son's mother and father were not identical in voice, height, and appearance, the son cannot be a ben sorer or moreh. The logic? In the Torah verse, the mother and father say that the son will not obey our voices. Rabbi Yehuda interprets that as meaning that the two parents must have the same voice. And he continues, if they are required to have an identical voice, they must also be required to be identical in height and appearance. And at that point, really, there's no realistic path for anyone to be charged with a punishment for the ben sorer or moreh. The Torah precept has been made functionally irrelevant. I don't mean to suggest that Torah interpretation is endlessly malleable, that Jewish tradition can be anything we want it to be without limits. But I do believe that, brilliantly, built into Jewish interpretive tradition is the flexibility to twist away from cruelty. When the tradition offers a principle that is harsher than what the community is willing to abide by, we readjust. Central to our ability to readjust is that Jews have never been Torah literalists. We cannot simply read the Pentateuch and live accordingly. For the last 1,500 years, the Talmud has been the principal source of Jewish life and practice. Today, we live by the Torah as it has been refracted by millennia of interpretation. With each generation, Jewish interpretive tradition expands. Over the generations, 2 severe laws are amended. It is our sacred duty to participate in that work. As our Reform forebears wrote in the Columbus Platform in 1937, each age has the obligation to adapt the teachings of the Torah to its basic needs in consonance with the genius of Judaism. Just as Judaism offers us something extraordinary, a toolkit, the glasses, if you will, to see the divine, so too do we all have something to contribute to Judaism. We all have Torah within us, and we all need one another's Torah. I can't wait to learn your Torah, pray together, and get to know you in the year to come. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.